in our debates. And in all candor, getting us to agree on big, bold goals was the most important reason to me that I put in all those hours to create the coalition and to nurse it along. I wanted us to say, as a nation, I wanted us to answer one big question. What will it take America to continue to be a great nation in the emerging digital economy? What do we need to do to continue to be great? What kind of steps do we need to take today to be great in 5 years and 10 years? And so when we created our coalition and then we eventually created 6 working groups, one of those working groups was on goals, and all I really, really wanted from this coalition was for us to be able to agree on goals. So the goals committee went to work on goals, and after giving them some time to work on these goals, I sat in and listened to what they were saying. And what they were saying was that, well, our goals ought to be in around the same range that the task force arrived at. And I asked the members of the group, well, how did you arrive at that? And they said, well, you know, we considered a number of factors. We thought about the applications that are in existence today. We thought about where we are today, what kind of money it would take to get us from here to there, the kinds of educational hurdles that we would have to overcome, the practicalities, and so we sort of fudged it, we put it all together, and we came up with these numbers. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way that the task force did it, that's the way our folks did it. And so I said, well, let's rethink how we're asking this question. First thing, we've got other groups that are going to focus on practicalities. We're going to focus on demand side issues. We're going to focus on supply side issues. But your job is primarily to ask, what should our goals be? What's the point of leaning our ladders up against the wrong wall or the wrong tree? If we set our goals too low and we meet our goals, and our goals are not bold enough to enable us to reach the larger goal of continuing to be a great nation, what have we accomplished? So rethink the goal, think of where the world is, think of things we could do with that bandwidth, things that we know about today, think about trends, and think about what some reasonable standards with some headroom would be on top of those known and anticipated needs. And then at that point, the conversation shifted up to about 100 megabits per second for this same range. And then we brought in some additional people who were actually already at 100 megabits, universities, college, health-focusing people. And they were talking about wanting to be in the gigabit range in 2015. So what we ended up doing was coming up with a target of 100 to a gigabit. Well, in the context of our discussions with 160 organizations, we couldn't agree on a goal like that because we had a substantial number of people who couldn't agree to something that large, no matter what the rationale might be. They had different reasons, and they had respectable reasons, so we didn't try, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't try to force anybody to agree to anybody else's views. What we did was we reflected everybody's views in this document. And when people who didn't like somebody else's views and wanted them changed, our response to them was, we're not going to put words in your mouth, and we're not going to take words out of anybody else's mouth. So our report reflects them all. But to me, what was left of that discussion is that depending on how you ask the question, you know, if you start with the question, what do we really need to do? this is the right question. You know, what will it take for Minnesota to be a global leader in the world? The answer to that is not 20 down and 10 up. The answer to that is a lot larger. The different question is how you get there. Okay, that's a different question, and what's practical for Minnesota to do is a different question. But if you start with the view that this is going to get you to be a global leader, you need to ask a different question. It's like Lily Tomlin saying, if love is the answer, can we reframe the question? Okay?